If you're an intermediate lifter, you've probably been told that you shouldn't squat and deadlift on the same day. In this video, I'm going to tell you whether that's true, and then I'll give you some tips to improve your strength training so that you can hit PRs and actually get stronger. If you don't have time to watch this video and apply the concepts, top link in the description, you can hire me as your personal strength coach. I'll write your program for you, tell you what to do to get strong, or a second link if you just want some good strength training programs to go and follow. So let's get straight into it. Most of you intermediate guys probably believe that you shouldn't be squatting and deadlifting on the same day because those lifts are really hard. They're really heavy and taxing, right? It would beat you up so much if you squatted and deadlifted on the same training session. What if I told you that the problem wasn't doing the squat and the deadlift on the same day? The problem is you training way too hard and heavy like an idiot. And that's no offense intended. I've been there and I did exactly the same thing myself, beating my head against the wall trying to train way too hard. But let me explain what I mean. So I'm willing to bet that if you're not making the best progress right now and you believe you can't squat and deadlift on the same day, it's because of the way you train. You train very hard, very heavy. Your current approach probably has you doing like straight sets that are really hard on the main lifts. You probably squat and deadlift for like a 3x5 or a 5x5 on a program like 5x5, 5-through-1, Texas method or something like that. You do really hard sets, really grindy. The last reps of the set are really slow, really close to failure. In between sets, you have to rest for like 10 minutes. You have to get yourself really hyped, have loads of caffeine, loads of loud music. And it's just really brutal training. Your approach to getting stronger is that week after week, you go in and you just try and force more weight on the bar. But what actually happens is things just feel heavier, heavier, heavier until finally you start failing reps. Then you have to step back and reset, build up again. And it feels like there's no real like progression or plan to actually get stronger. And let me tell you, the problem is not the squat and the deadlift, it is your intensity. You're training way too hard. So let's fix that really quickly first. Then we can discuss how to actually set up frequency on the squat and the deadlift and whether you should do them on the same day. So intensity is the problem. Stop doing these straight sets, 3x5, 5x5 with a really hard, slow and grindy. Do this instead. I want you to do a top set back off approach. So I want you to do a top set on your squats and deadlifts of 1 to 3 reps at 80% and above. This top set is for skill practice. It's the heavy stuff that we're going to push hard and we're going to aim to add weight to it every single week where we can, okay? Then we're going to do our volume work much lighter. We're going to do this for sets of 4 to 6 reps in the 60 to 75% range. This allows us to get in a lot of volume while still actually recovering, adapting, and being able to put weight on the bar because we got stronger. This polarized approach of a top set back off gives us the best of both worlds. So instead of your current approach where you're doing straight sets, really hard, slow and grindy, we're going to do one of those sets that's quite hard for skill practice. Then we do the bulk of the volume lighter. So we get the skill practice, we get to lift heavy, but we get to do our volume work at an intensity that allows us to recover, adapt, and actually train the main lifts that we care about multiple times throughout the week. Once we've got the intensity in check, now we can start to look at frequency. So all of the top strength athletes in the world understand that in order to get stronger long term, they need to train the squat and the deadlift frequently. These lifts are technical lifts that we need to become skilled and proficient at if we want to get stronger. If you look at the top lifters in powerlifting and strength training, they are all really, really good at squatting and deadlifting. When they do the lifts, it looks effortless. Their technique is so clean because they've practiced it so many times and they do the lifts frequently enough to get stronger at them. For most of you, I would recommend that you squat 2 times a week, sometimes 3 times a week if you're not a great squatter like myself. Deadlift, I would do twice a week. If you're not used to deadlifting twice a week, then I would recommend that you do 1 heavy deadlift and 1 Romanian deadlift. That's a nice way to kind of bridge you into higher frequencies. But if you take anything from this video, if you want to be really strong at squats and deadlifts, you need to train them frequently enough that you are skilled at them. For myself, like even if I drop down to once a week on the squat and the deadlift, just for a little period, I feel terrible. My technique falls apart. They feel so sloppy. I feel like I forget how to do the lifts. And that's how most of you are training like normally for most of the year. And I'm not surprised that you never get any stronger. You need to do the lifts more frequently. Now, once you've got intensity in check, you'll be surprised that you actually can do the main lifts more frequently. Right now, you're probably thinking like, oh, there's no way I can deadlift more than once a week. And it's not because of the deadlift, it's because you deadlift way too hard, okay? My secondary deadlift day right now is like 50% of my 1 rep max. It's so easy. but it represents a little bit more stress that bridges the gap between my heavier deadlifts and allows me to continue getting stronger. There's not a week that's going between my deadlift exposures. I have my heavy deadlift, then a lighter deadlift, and it bridges the gap so that I can actually continue getting stronger, okay? So once we've got the intensity in check, we need to determine how much frequency you need to get stronger. Like I said, for the squat, 2 to 3 times a week, deadlift 1 to 2 a week, most of you is going to be twice a week. Now, in order to accumulate those frequencies for those of you who are a bit more experienced, it might require you to squat and deadlift on the same day. And that's perfectly fine. For myself, I train 5 days a week. My Saturday training session is an SBD session, so squat, bench, deadlift. And I do both squat and deadlift on the same day. I recover from it just fine. It feels easy and I feel good. And it's necessary for me to be able to do those frequencies. Now, I'm going to give you 3 tips to make it easier for you to squat and deadlift on the same day if you need to do that, okay? Tip number 1 is to pair your primary squat and secondary deadlift or vice versa on the same day. So instead of doing your heavy squats and deadlifts on the same day, do your heavy squat and your light deadlift or vice versa. So that way you're not pushing both lifts heavy on the same day. So for myself, for example, my Saturday session is my secondary squat and my primary deadlift. So deadlift is the priority. I push that one harder. The squat is a secondary consideration, like it's not as heavy. That way I get to do both on the same day. I still get to train both of them frequently, but they're not both like super heavy and stressful on the same day. Because if you do both primary lifts on the same session, that's when you start to run into problems sometimes and it's really heavy. It might be harder to recover from. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but in my experience, it's just a bit easier to kind of match them up. So one is heavy, one is light. So you might have one session where you do heavy squats, light deadlifts. The other day might be heavy deadlifts, light squats. That's a nice easy way to implement both into the same session. Tip number 2 is to manipulate the volume. So again, we could do high volume squats, low volume deadlifts, or vice versa. Nice easy way to just dose things appropriately. So you might have like your squat, which is a bit more high volume. Then you might do your Romanian deadlift on the same session because it's much lighter, it's easier to recover from, and we can just pair them up a lot easier. So consider the volume, the intensity of these sessions so that you don't end up with this really long like marathon session that's like 3 hours long. Also, just even psychologically, like going in knowing that one lift is primary, one is secondary, allows you to just get through the session a bit easier, because if you know you've got primary squats and primary deadlifts, it's really hard to kind of like mentally hype yourself up for primary squats and then have to do it all over again for the deadlift. Tip number 3 is to intelligently place pressing exercises like between your squats and your deadlifts. You can kind of sandwich it between those 2 lifts. So if you follow my recommendations, you know that I recommend to bench press 3 or 4 times a week for max strength gains. I've got a full video on it here that you can go ahead and watch. But if you're going to bench press 3 or 4 times a week, it's going to require you to do that on the same day as your squats and your deadlifts sometimes. A really nice convenient way to do that is if you know you have to squat and deadlift on the same day, turn it into an SBD day and put a bench press in the middle. It means that you get to do your squat, then you get to have a break on the bench press for like 15, 20, even 30 minutes. Your back gets to recover a little bit, the legs get to recover, then you can go and do your deadlifts afterwards. So you get this nice rest period in between where you can like mentally switch back on again, body can recover a little bit, because the bench is quite chill compared to squats and deadlifts. Then go into your deadlifts feeling a bit more fresh, a bit more ready to hit them, okay? So SBD days are a really nice way to kind of implement that into your training. Plus, if you're interested in powerlifting, they're very specific to your goals of competition, okay? Now, if you're watching this and you're a bit confused on like how to implement this into a program, how you can fit in the squat, the bench, and the deadlift all at high frequencies, top link in the description. I'll assess your training history and write your program for you. Or second link if you just want some good strength training programs to go and follow, okay? There's 3, 4, and 5 day options there. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you take anything from this video, the problem is not squatting and deadlifting on the same day. The problem is that you train them way too hard, way too heavy. You need to have a long, hard look at your intensity, because if you dial that down, you'll find that you can easily train the squat and the deadlift on the same day, multiple times a week, okay? So intensity in check first, then you'll open up a whole new possibility for how frequently you can train. If you have any questions and comments, post them in the comment section down below. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss future uploads. If you would like a free strength training program to go and follow, watch this video here and I literally give you a 4-day-a-week training program that you can just go and steal and get strong. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope it helps your performance in the gym. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next video.